You ever wondered what it's like to protect the borders of our nation day in, day out? What kind of grit and determination does it take to serve on the front lines of Homeland Security? And what makes this profession both challenging and rewarding? Welcome back to Eagle Eye on Crime. I'm your host, the criminal justice professor. And today we have an incredible episode lined up for you. We're diving into the world of Border Patrol, and I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Miguel Lara, a U.S. Border Patrol agent with over 15 years of experience. In this episode, Miguel takes us behind the scenes, sharing the realities of life as a Border Patrol agent, the benefits of working in Border Patrol, how technology is transforming the profession, and even the unexpected human moments that make the job unforgettable. Before we get started, I want to note that due to some unexpected technological difficulties during filming, this interview will be audio only. But fear not. Miguel's insights and stories are so compelling that they'll paint their own vivid picture. So put on your headphones and let's dive into this fascinating discussion.
Good afternoon. I'm United States Border Patrol agent Miguel Lara. I've been with the Border Patrol going on 15 years. I'm originally from the South Florida area. I left the Border Patrol many moons ago. Looking at in the late 80s, went to UT El Paso, ended up getting my degree, which was not in criminal justice. I pursued that degree, which was in psychology. I got my master's degree. So I did kind of the long track. I ended up doing more education. Then while over there in El Paso, Texas, I ended up going into law enforcement. I was able to use my degree to actually get into the Border Patrol. And that kind of leads into a little bit, probably as your first question, why I chose Border Patrol. And self-disclosure, I actually was using Border Patrol as a transitional agency. What does that mean? Because it is considered more of an entry level where you don't need a degree, like FBI and some of these other three-letter agencies, which require either 60 credit hours or a full bachelor's. Border Patrol and or what's also known as Office of Field Operations, which is customs officers. They're at the airports, seaports, and land ports. Those don't require degrees or even law enforcement experience. So that was my idea, is to get into Border Patrol, because at that time, since I was a late bloomer in law enforcement, I ended up being already about 37, 38 years old. So typically, for your students to be aware, most federal law enforcement agencies, you have to come in at 37 because you have to retire mandatory by 57. So you do your 20 years of service. So CBP, Customs and Border Protection, which is under the Department of Homeland Security, has three law enforcement organizations. They have AMO, which is Air and Marine Operations. There are helicopter pilots and our boat captains. Then you have OFO, Office of Field Operations. They are our blue uniforms. And like I mentioned before, they're at the ports of entry, airports, seaports, and land ports. Everything in between those land ports of entry with Mexico and Canada, that's where you have Border Patrol stations. So when individuals are coming into our country, no matter what the purpose is, United States citizen or not, you have to present yourself for inspection. When people circumvent, especially those land ports of entry, that's where Border Patrol agents intercept. However, we also do have coastal borders. We also have what we call New Orleans sector, which is Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and part of the Panhandle in Florida. And then we also have Miami sector, which is the rest of the Florida Peninsula, Puerto Rico. So we have a Ramey sector there, which also has a Border Patrol station. So that's kind of a quick overview. That way your students, individuals understand where do we fall under DHS and how CBP is comprised.
So, what has made you stay with the Border Patrol for now 15 years then?
The Border Patrol offers, as opposed to OFO, like I explained, with customs, they're centrally located at ports of entry. With Border Patrol is that you're definitely out in the field more. So you're in more remote areas. So what we have to offer as far as specialty units is horse patrol. We have ATVs, have actually dirt bikes as well. And we do even have small maritime stations. For example, when I left El Paso after 10 and something years, I went to San Diego sector for Imperial Beach Station. And I was on a unit called CBET, Coastal Border Enforcement Team. There's a lot more things you can do with the Border Patrol, not only outdoors, but it also lends itself for other things, what we call prosecutions, right? So once we catch bad guys, smugglers, drug traffickers, weapons of mass destruction as well, any type of terroristic threats, we end up sending those and we go to prosecute. We also have intelligence gathering. So we have intel units. We also have drones. We have what's also sensors. So there's different areas of things that you can do in the Border Patrol.
Can you walk us through a typical day as a Border Patrol agent? What does a regular shift look like?
Typical day would encompass showing up for your shift. You muster up. That's what we call like our intel brief, where you have our chain of command talking to the troops about what are the trends as far as any type of traffic coming in. And when I say foot traffic or any drug smuggling, people smuggling, things of that nature, you end up getting that brief. That usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes. After that, you break to go pick up your vehicle keys. You go to the armory. You pick up any additional long arms, which are the assault rifles that are assigned to us. Anything else that you might need is if it's nighttime, you might get NVGs, night vision goggles, any spikes, right, which are deflation devices if we have people making incursions or running checkpoints, right? So there's certain individuals assigned to that type of equipment as well. You pick up that equipment and basically you head out to your area of responsibility where your assignment is and you're patrolling there. So there's different patrolling in the Border Patrol. So the one that is the most stationary, it's called a hard X. So that means the agent relieves you or you relieve that agent. So you do not leave that post, right? That's what's called a hard X. From there, you have other people. When I say other people, you have your fellow agents or other ATV units, horse patrol, anybody else surveying the area where you're at. Because if a sensor goes off and you leave that X, then other people might make incursions, right? So that's what they're trying to do is draw you off from that hard X, from that place. So that way now you leave that open, right? And then people are crossing. So that's why you have different type of other units either backing you up or patrolling your area. So that's basically what you're doing throughout the day. You're either on a hard X, staying there, or a soft X where you can actually leave that area because it gives you enough time to go patrol around that area. And then there's no X's where you're giving maybe 3 to 5 miles to patrol. And now what you do is what we call, if the terrain allows for it, is what you drag the road. You get either tires or rakes that you rake with your vehicle to make it smooth. So now you're not only what we call cutting for sign, you're looking for any type of disturbance for either a foot sign, anything that might be what we call a brushing out, like with people trying to cover up anything that crossed through that area. And that's basically what you're doing, responding to sensors. Once, if there is some type of incursion, now you respond, you call for backup, people come and you arrest those that you have to detain or arrest, and you take them back to the station to process them. And depending on what their checks come back as far as their prior criminal history or other incursions, now you have to make a disposition of how you're going to proceed with their case. And now that's turned over to the prosecutions unit, and they determine whether or not how they're going to proceed with charges or things of that nature.
Okay, wonderful. So, in what ways do you collaborate with other law enforcement or federal agencies?
So obviously our brothers and sisters in blue and in tan uniforms, right? That's our internal CBP brothers and sisters that we work very closely with. But also we also work with local police departments or sheriffs, depending on where your duty station is, right? Because some of them are outside of city limits, others are within the county. We also have been noticing lately in the state of Texas, right? The actual state troopers for the Texas DPS, they have been in the forefront a lot at the southwestern border with Texas and Mexico. So those are partners that we deal with. Now we also work with federal partners, and that comes back also with the intelligence that we gather when we do apprehend groups. We are surveilling what we call pocket trash. Once we pat them down, we're getting them ready to transport. Anything that we might gather or feel that be necessary, we pass on to our internal or our local intelligence agents, and then they pass it on to either HSI, ICE, or any other agencies, DEA, if there's any type of narcotics and drugs. And then even FBI, we have on occasion worked with them when it, unfortunately, if there's shootings, right? Because there are shootings, especially with the Mexican cartel, that might happen. Violence crossing over from the Mexican side or actually interacting with border agents as well. So that becomes more quote unquote like an international incident, right? So now the FBI is involved.
Okay, perfect. Can you share a story or experience that highlights the unique, rewarding, or even surprising aspects of your job?
This career is in general a very rewarding profession, not only serving my country, but interacting with the community, dealing not only where our area of responsibility is, but expanding throughout different communities to include dealing with the people we apprehend at the border. In the news, there's been a lot of heartache and heartbreak and a lot of, you would say, where individuals, right, are exploited. So that's the sad part, right? But by hopefully us making a presence and being there, we deter that from happening. I also been able to mentor the youth in Texas, what we call the Explorer program, which they're since COVID, they're bringing that back up. I know most of local PDs or sheriffs do have type of Explorer programs, and Border Patrol does offer that as well as the Office of Field Operations. So that's been very rewarding being able to mentor and just in general, just giving back to the community and mainly protecting and giving to my country, protecting our homeland.
Awesome. Awesome. So, what role does technology play in your daily tasks, and how has it changed the way that you've done your job since when you started 15 years ago to now? What changes have you seen?
Okay, so currently in the last couple of years, I've been a full-time recruiter, but when I was in the field, and from what I still hear from other agents, is technology is key. You can have barriers up, border walls, fences, barriers, whatever you want to call it. Those are deterrents. The technology part, when it comes to sensors in the ground, things that allow agents to respond and detect where they're strategically placed, right, to try to get certain, at least to get a heads up, right, about what might be crossing, what type of traffic. Also, we have our drones now. That's been a big thing in the last few years. We have drone specific units throughout our sector, through nationwide, throughout the Border Patrol. And then everything with our air partners with AMO and the cameras at the ports of entry as well. It's all about night vision, especially that's where the highest traffic is usually takes place at dusk until dawn for concealment of night. So that infrared technology is huge and key for us to protect our homeland. And then I would say there's nothing more important than all those field agents. We have our dispatchers that are also controlling our communications with the radio. That's our lifeline to not only our backup, but everything else to get, the troops rolling our way if we need to interact or intercede or intervene.
What are some common misconceptions people have about Border Patrol agents and the work you guys do?
I would say it's no secret, right? Where unfortunately with anything, not only Border Patrol, but anything with immigration, without getting political and things like that. But unfortunately, it is in the public eye, right? And a lot of things that they use sometimes negatively when it comes to treatment, right? Possibly inhumane treatment that media or other things try to use against either Border Patrol or CBP in general is probably the biggest misconception. Whereas what individuals don't see or is not publicized is when we are tending and caring for these children, toddlers, infants that come unaccompanied. And here we are, feeding them and changing them and, basically taking care of them until we can put them in or someone else can actually come for them.
Mm, yeah, that's got to be tough. So I think our question should transition now since you are a recruiter. Obviously, the purpose and the goal of today's conversation is to get the word out about the benefits and the advantages to working with the Border Patrol. So what are some of the biggest advantages and benefits?
So right off the bat with Border Patrol, it's mission critical, not only because we've talked already about the surge and the influx of undocumented non-citizens. So we have what we call hiring incentives, recruitment incentives. So we do have up to $30,000. We have paid training, so you're getting paid at the Border Patrol Academy. Once you complete the 6-month academy, you get a $10,000 incentive. 2.5 years later, at year 3, you get an additional $10,000. The caveat is it's a service agreement. So if you leave before the 3 years, you got to pay back that first 10. Okay. We also have up to $30,000, which means at that year 3, if you pick one of our 8 prioritized stations, right? There's one in Arizona, one in New Mexico, and there's 6 in Texas. Now you get an additional 10,000. So at year 3, instead of getting 10, you'll get 20. That's where you get up to the 30,000. Right now, the base salary for a GLE, which I imagine most of your students will have one if they're looking at applying, and you can apply up to 9 months before you graduate with an unofficial transcript. Now, at that point, you come in as a GL7, which is 55.5 base salary at the academy. A year later, you're going to get a pay increase to about 62,000. The next year, you'll be at about 73,000. Okay. And that's when you get your additional $10,000. This is just base entry level salaries. Now, we do have what's called BEPRA, which is our built-in overtime, which you get 25% of your base salary. So if you do the math, basically you are at about 95,000 at year 3. By the time you hit year 4, you're making 16,000 right now. Okay. Again, when I say right now, it's because every year, typically federal law enforcement gets a 1 to 1.2, 1.5% pay increase. So there's stability there when it comes to your pay benefits. In addition to our salary, we get what's called premium pay. So you get night differential pay, which is 10% of your base salary when you work anything from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. You also get Sunday pay, which is 15% of your base salary. Okay, when anything you work during your Sunday, and then obviously federal holiday pay, you get double.
Wow. And what about for those of us who are, older and look toward retirement? I know my students aren't really looking at that right now. What kind of retirement at the federal level are you looking?
Correct. Yes. So with retirement, you do have your federal pension, but in addition to that, we have what's like a 401k called the TSP. That's a built-in 401k. It's up to 3%. The government or the CBP matches that up to year 3. By year 3 to year 5, you can go and you can contribute 5%, and then they match that 5%. And you can always contribute more without penalties if you want to or need to. So there's definitely a lot of benefits if you're prior military or looking into doing reserve duty as well. we give 15 days of military leave so you can drill on the weekends and or drill on your 2 weeks during the summer.
Talk to us about the training
So
process, what recruits can expect at the academy.
the academy is a 6-month long academy for Border Patrol. For OFO, it's 6 months as well, but 4.5 is at enforcement training centers. For Border Patrol is in Artesia, New Mexico. And we also have FLETC, Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers in Glencoe, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina. So OFO primarily is in either Charleston or Glencoe. And then we also have Harpers Ferry, which is near Virginia. So Border Patrol is 6 months because Spanish is incorporated into the curriculum. So they will teach you Spanish from basically week 1 or week 2. Entry level, you're going to start from basic alphabet, conjugating verbs, putting sentence structures to the point where you're actually processing people in Spanish.
Okay.
So, and it is step by step. So basically 5 months, you're going to be learning Spanish. For those that are native speakers, obviously it's going to be an easier class. With OFO, the officer positions, my understanding is that they actually do a 4.5-month academy. And then once they get back to the port of entry, that's where they learn the Spanish.
Oh, okay.
So that's the difference there. For both academies, you will be doing firearms training. You will do physical training, and then you're going to be doing, in addition to that, some type of driving. For Border Patrol, obviously, you do more off-road because you're going to be more in remote areas and tougher terrain. So you get to, if you like that outdoor stuff, definitely Patrol is for you because you do a lot more four-wheeling and things of that nature. And then you have the academic part, which for most students shouldn't be too difficult because they're coming out of either with college degrees, associate's degrees, things like that. So they have those good study habits. There are 3 courses for Border Patrol, which are college level courses, because you do come out of there with up to 12 college credit that can be used for some other type of degree that you can apply. So it's going to be immigration law, it's going to be naturalization law, and applied authority. And those are taught by attorneys at the academies. Okay, so actual federal attorneys, and they teach those classes. And then sprinkled in between there, you have to continue to get physically fit. You're doing firearms training, which is key, right? So when you leave the academy, you do a qualifying course with your pistol, which is your sidearm. You do your long arm, which is your assault rifle, which we call the M4, and your shotgun. So those are the 3 that you become proficient at the academy. And that's also for OFO.
Then after the 6 months, are they assigned to a training officer, or how does that go?
So once you graduate the academy, you get credentials, you get all your gear, you get your uniforms, everything is provided to you. And now you show up to your duty station. So your field training unit is what's going to show you your area of responsibility. Everything from landmarks to where a track where you have certain trends. So you become a subject matter expert on that area of responsibility. So you got to learn the job first for about another 4 to 6 months. And you start first basically on day shift. So you can learn all the landmarks, all the different areas during the day. And then that's typically about 3 months on day shift. And then depending on the FTO, 1.5 months of evening shift, which is from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And that's where you start earning that night differential pay, right? Because anything from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., you start earning night differential pay. You're learning now how to work your area at night, because it's different than in the day when you start getting dark, and then different things happen throughout different areas of responsibility. And then you'll do at least 1 pay period, or if not 2. And a pay period is 2 weeks. So you can do at least 1 to 2 during the midnight shift, which is from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And again, that's typically how you start learning the job, because most of the traffic and the cartels are aware of this, and people trying to cross is that when there's shift change, that's where you're most vulnerable. So that's where you learn all the different tricks of the trade and what to expect, how to set up for different things. And at the end of that, you basically now a year, you're off probation, and now you're actually on your own. You're held responsible for your area of responsibility, whatever assignments you have, and you get to work.
So are these 8-hour shifts for everyone?
Everybody is 8 hour shifts, and then they are built in what I mentioned where it says that 25%. So those are 2 additional hours. Everybody will work 8 hours. Now it's up to you if you're gonna work those 2 additional hours, which is up to that 25%. Most of the Border Patrol works it because it helps with that transition from shift to shift. So why leave money on the table, right? Some people, family dynamics requires them just to work 8 and out the gate, and that's fine too, but you just get your base salary. If you decide to work 9 hour shifts, now you get 12.5%. So that's basically where it's it, and shift bid and also your pay. So every year you have the option, do I want to work 10 hours, 9 hours, or 8 hours? With OFO, they don't have that because their union work different. So with OFO, they just work 8 hour shifts at the ports of entry, but they are mandated or ordered to work additional 4 or 8 hour overtime shifts, which is pretty lucrative, right? Because you will earn a lot of money, and there's even up to, I believe, a $45,000 annual cap of overtime right now for OFO that you can max out at. But you will be ordered to work with OFO, those extra.
What advice would you give someone interested in joining the Border Patrol?
So to join, first and foremost, you need to have a USA Jobs account, a profile. I would say about 90% of all federal jobs, you have to go through usajobs.gov. That profile only takes about maybe 3 to 5 minutes to create. The biggest thing that especially young people authenticate via biometrics. Do not biometrics, kids. Do not use that. You want to use via text. I know the young people love all that facial recognition and using their digits or eyeball, but that software, I've seen it many times, jam people up. You have to create a whole new account. You have to wait 24 or 48 hours. I think that probably resume. That's the biggest thing as well. On USA Jobs, there's a function on there that allows you to upload a resume or build your resume. Okay. There's nothing wrong with uploading your resume, but we always recommend that you build the resume, use the template, because the biggest mistake that individuals do is when they apply for a federal job and they upload a resume that they've created or someone else create for them, it does not have what's called HPW. To include Border Patrol, you need 1 year of general work experience, paid or unpaid, unless you have your degree, right? So if someone came in straight from high school and went in straight into college, well, they probably never had that 1 year work experience, maybe a part-time job here and there or work study, right? But they don't meet that 1 year. So those are the two things. USA Jobs, authenticate via text, and your resume, your HPW.
That concludes the questions I had for you. Are there any final thoughts or advice that you want to give our viewers regarding a career in Border Patrol?
Well, just not in Border Patrol in general. I mean, I have adult children, and the biggest thing we always want to tell is keep your options open. So at the very least, I can help you build a entry-level fundamental resume. And then now not only apply for us, but you now use that to apply for other federal law enforcement or just agencies in general. There's so many. Once you get on USA Jobs, you're gonna have to use all those filters that they have on there to narrow down where you want to be. You can do it geographically, by region, by pay, by specific job skills. It's a great tool to have. You're going to be spending time on building an option or options for you. And
Well, I certainly appreciate your time today. I think our students are going to get a lot of great insights on the opportunities that they may not have even known were available to them.
That wraps up this incredible episode of Eagle Eye on Crime. A huge thank you to Miguel Lara for sharing his experiences, insights, and advice with us today. If today's episode sparked your curiosity or inspired you to consider a career in Border Patrol, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Remember, keep your eyes peeled, your curiosity alive, and until next time, stay sharp. I'm the criminal justice professor, and this is Eagle Eye on Crime.